Good morning. Thank you so much, Vicki, for asking me to do this presentation. As a show of hands, so I kind of get an idea, who already flies drones? 1, 2, 3. And who is interested in flying drones? Oh, good. Okay, that's much better. Okay, so I started flying drones about 2 years ago, which doesn't seem very long, but in the drone and photography world, it's already a good amount of time. I've been a commercial photographer now for about 12 years. I do construction sites, architecture, events like trade shows, conventions, those sort of things. The reason I actually got into drone is because my clients asked me. And so, just like any other photography, when they say, do you do this? And you don't. Then you say, of course I do. And then you run right out and learn how to do it. So that's what I did. So here's me out on location. First of all, up on the top, this is my fleet of drones. This one we will be flying off the balcony later. This is the most expensive. This is a 6-prop drone, as you see. It handles the wind a whole lot better. This is now my backup drone, but that was actually my first drone. This is a smaller one. This is the Mavic Pro. And this tiny little thing fits in the palm of my hand, and I don't have very big hands, but that one's just for play. But as you see here, I'm out on job sites. I have my little landing mat, and so that's what I look like when I'm on a job site. So the first step in figuring out if you want to be a drone pilot is what kind of drone do you need? A lot depends. What are you going to use it for? Is it going to be recreational? Is it going to be, are you going to do weddings? Are you going to do real estate? What are you going to do? And how much is your budget? Because that little one, this is a Spark, that's about $350. This one is about $1,500. This one's about $5,000. Okay? So it just really depends on what is your purpose. The other thing is how mobile. This one and this one are very easy to pack up and take with you places, like if you're traveling on vacation or whatever. These two are not. So you have to take those things into consideration as well. Next thing is, if you are going to fly for commercial purposes, you must be certified by the FAA. You must actually have a remote pilot certification by the FAA to fly drones. And yes, I have that. I'd be happy to show you that. Yes?
How much is it to get one of those? How much?
The certification, the testing alone costs $150 to take the test. If you do not pass the test, you can take the test again, but you have to pay $150 again to take the test again. The training for that, there's lots of different ways you can train. It is only written, right now they do not require an actual flight test like a driver's license. You have to take a driver's license. You don't have to show that you actually know how to fly. You just have to show on a knowledge test. Okay? And I actually have resources at the end of this. It's on your handouts where you can learn and train. Okay? Yes, absolutely. So the thing about also, do you need your certification? Commercial purposes, if you are flying, money does not have to change hands. In other words, I'll trade you your drone flying for me baking a chocolate pie for you, okay? Well, okay, money did not change hands, but did it further somebody's business interest? That's the determining factor, okay? So the other thing is, if you are caught by the FAA, and there are actually inspectors here in Las Vegas who have stopped on sites where drones are flying. If you are caught flying without your FAA certification and or a waiver as required, the fines start at $11,000 for both you, the pilot, and the company that hired you. So, go learn, get your certification.
How long does that last for?
It's 2 years, mine's coming up for renewal in August. You'll have to take a recertification test. I am told that the recertification test is not as difficult as the first one, but I have yet to see. Also to that end, let me show you, there's some study aids for that. This is available on Amazon. This is the test pilots, or not test, remote pilot test prep. And you'll notice it has 2019 because the regulations changed. So you'll want to get that. Also, you will have to learn how to read what is known as a sectional chart. Some of us call it a map, but the FAA calls it a sectional chart. And it has all the different ways that you can and cannot fly in the areas. And you have to learn how to read that really well. There are a lot of questions on the test about sectional charts. What is restricted airspace? What is it? What heights you can go? Some areas you can only go 50 feet high. Some areas you can go 400 feet high. So you have to know all of that, and that comes in your training and in your study for your license. And also, word of advice, don't think you can just walk in and say, oh, I'll just wing it on the test. It took me 60 hours of really intense focused training of watching the videos and reading and research, and then it took me another probably 60 to 90 hours of study over and over every single day and practice tests before I took this test. I knew nothing about airspace or FAA, and the test is 90% FAA and 10% drone. So you need to know about wind and clouds and airports and fixed wing aircraft and stuff like that. Okay, so we talked about that. You'll also want insurance. If you're flying commercially, your homeowner's insurance will not cover your drone activities, maybe not even for recreational purposes. So you need to look into insurance for that. Insurance costs vary widely. You'll want a comparison shop. Hull insurance is different than general liability insurance, and it is extra. Safety, big deal. You are flying an aircraft, not a toy. So you need to know how good are you at flying. You want to practice a lot before you start flying. You want to know what problem areas you have on a site for your risk mitigation before you go out. I often scout a site before I will fly it. Somebody will call me up and say, I need a drone and I need it just for an hour. Oh, it's no big deal, it's just this site. It's like, okay, well, are there guy wires there? Or what kind of buildings are there? What is next to it? Are there electrical, high intensity electrical poles? All kinds of things that people have done. They just say, oh, just put the drone up. No, not doing that. The other thing, nothing ever good comes out of somebody who says first, watch this. The next thing is on your controls. You're holding your controls, and you'll see this when I demonstrate this later. Your drone on the control always goes, you can go forward or backwards. But if you go forward, but your drone is facing you, that means forward is towards you. So this is why I'm saying you need to practice so that it becomes muscle memory of the way your fingers are going to work on the control so that you know where your aircraft is all the time. Also, are you rusty? Has it been a long time since you flew the last time? Do you remember how your aircraft works? Do you remember your controls? Are you comfortable with that before? Being out on a site for a client is not the time to learn. And practice your landings. Nobody likes a hard landing. Okay, so one of the things is, are you allowed to fly there? The FAA is the only one that controls airspace. As soon as we stand or jump, we are in airspace. Okay? So the problem is that there's a lot of jurisdictions or private property that thinks they own their airspace. They don't. They will argue with you. They don't. However, they can control your takeoff and landing. If you are takeoff and landing for private property, you may not be allowed to do that. So you need to either get permission to do that or fly from a public place and fly over to that private area. However, do that with caution as well, because if you are flying over truly private property owned by a person, there's other consequences that can happen. I show this because the morning that a friend and I went out to the Smith Center, my fly buddy happens to be an attorney as well, and we went to the Smith Center. We looked all over, we looked online, are drones allowed? Said nothing about drones at the Smith Center. Said photography on the outside is fine. Okay, so we go there, we're walking along, we set up. Mind you, this is at 6 o'clock on a Sunday morning. And not long after we are in the air, we get a little visit by their armed security director, who says, "Gosh, you can't be doing that here." And we said, "Oh, really? I'm so sorry." We looked all around for the signs. "Yeah, you know, we just had a staff meeting about that last week. We're going to post the signs. So could you just like wrap it up?" And so we did not get cited for trespassing, but we were gently asked, please cease and desist and move on. They did not ask us to erase our photos, so we're good on that. You try to avoid people. Some of you may recognize this as the 7 Magic Mountains. There are people in the shot down over here. They look like little ants, but you want to avoid flying over groups of people. Now, this is some perspective for you. This is out at Nelson. This is the first, here's ground level. I'm on the ground with a still camera. This is in the air about 72 feet. This is also in the air, I don't know, I would say this is probably at 90 feet. This one is probably around 120 maybe. Yeah?
I'm sorry, backing up just a bit.
Sure.
Why do you have to avoid people?
You want to avoid people because you don't want your aircraft to come down on them unexpectedly.
Oh.
Sometimes drones have a mind of their own. So, same subject, different heights give you different perspectives. Now, I don't know if you can see this really well, but just like in still photography on the ground, you can do composites. Here's what I did over at Magic Mountains. I exposed for this, then I exposed for this, and put it together afterwards. You just have your drone hover so that you can put the two together. So it's not ideal, you're not exactly on a tripod, but it's close enough. Here's another idea of perspective. This is what we would call bird's eye or God's eye view. Straight, the lens is going straight down. You get interesting things of shadows of people and perspective there. This is the same thing. It shows where it is relative to all these houses, and it gives you some idea of how high we are up. Here's another. This is out at Red Rock, where you are actually allowed to fly your drones, by the way. So this is, again, exactly the same place, but if you move over a little bit, you get a whole different look. So again, and it's really easy to do, just fly your drone for a little bit and you get a whole different shot, and you can choose from those. Now, the time of day also makes a difference. This client hired me. They had just finished the new Crate and Barrel store over at downtown Summerlin, and they wanted shots, and so I went out early in the morning because downtown Summerlin lights up. You can't really see it too well in here, but this is a bluish light underneath. This changes regularly. And I didn't think we were going to get that great of a sunrise because there were so many clouds low, but it wasn't bad. But it also just gives you an idea of different time and the effect of the way things look. This is a little bit of a distance. It just goes to show that you also don't need to be right on top of your subject to get a good image.
Hey,
Yeah?
aren't you pretty close to the Sky Harbor Airport now?
Yeah, here's the thing. FAA regulations say that you are not to fly within 5 miles of an airport. In Las Vegas metro area, 90% of our area is covered by airports. Why the 5 miles? That's where that land system comes in. So you get authorization. There's apps on your phone that I use. You can put in the parameters of your flight, where you're going to be, what height you're going to fly, for how long, and it'll give you an immediate authorization or a declination. Yeah. Yeah. So yes, I am close to the Henderson Airport here, but I flew in. Also, if you're flying for recreational purposes, a little bit of a gray area whether you need to get land authorization, but if you are flying a drone, I would highly recommend it. However, the other thing is on Lance, they are looking specifically for your certification number in there as well. So that's more difficult for recreational pilots to put in. So yeah, it's challenging sometimes. Now, this is a shot that I did at dusk. This area, the client wanted me to get this lot. I said, you want me to photograph a blank lot? And they said, yes, we do. I said, okay, great. And they wanted, so I went out and they wanted daytime and at dusk. So in daytime, I went out and I stood right about here and flew up. And as you know, on this side of the, that faces over to Red Rock, they wanted the Red Rock in the background from there. And then at dusk, they wanted, of course, the city lights. So this is the image that I got for them, knowing what they were going to do with the image. And this is what it became. So if you notice, my image is straight on. Their image is obviously changed a little bit. This was not nearly as high in the background, so they manipulated that a little bit. They also did a little bit of distortion here, but of course then they put in their rendering of what's going to be built there. But they could not do this image without mine to start with, because their programs do not show from area. So that was kind of a fun project. This one probably looks familiar to you. I did not want to go too much closer, but that was kind of fun to shoot. So here are some helpful sites. This is also on the back page of your presentation. There's some, if you didn't get one, there's some copies on empty seats as well. The FAA, you need to register your drone. If it is half a pound to 55 pounds, which is almost all the drones that one wants to fly. So you need to register. It costs $5 to register, and you get an FAA number that you have to put on your drone. Then it gives you also information on how to become a drone pilot. Gives you all kinds of study aids, just like the ones that I showed you from Amazon. Tony Northrup on YouTube was very helpful in explaining things. That was all free. Remote Pilot 101 is excellent, but that also costs money. AirMap is the one that I use for Lance authorizations. Sectional Chart, which I showed you, is available on Amazon, and the Remote Test Prep is also available on Amazon. And just so that you all know, I did not originate this shirt, but I keep this at my desk because it's so much fun. See that? Real pilots do not need runways. So, thank you. Questions? Yes?
What drone, like, for commercial purposes, you said you had one that was your first drone. Was that, did you like it? Was it a good starting point before you went to spend the $5,000?
Oh yeah, you always want to start small and grow. It is addicting, but also depends on your budget. It's kind of like, I make the analogy of, if you're shopping for a big screen TV and you have the choice between a 40-inch or 45-inch for not that much more, go for the 45-inch, because you'll say, oh, when we get it home, we really should have gotten that one. So I love my Phantom 4 Pro, and I still fly it, and I take it with me all the time as a backup. Just like your cameras, when you go out, you want to have 2 cameras if you're doing some commercial. You want to have 2 drones, because what if one has a technical issue, I'm not connecting it, whatever, then I need to have a second one on site so that I can go up. So yes, I still love, I fly all of them, but for different reasons. So a lot of it, I don't know if I'm answering your question, it just depends on how much money you want to invest to begin with. I will tell you that the ones that except for the largest ones, they're all DJI products, and they are easier to fly than the cheap, what some people would call play drones. Because one of the biggest advantages on the DJI product is that when you have what we call sticks up, with your thumbs, if you lose where you are flying, and you say, oh, I've lost it, where is it? I can't see it. If you just take your thumbs off the controls, it will hover in place. It will just stay where it last is so that you can find it again and start over again. The smaller ones don't have that feature. So you always have to be in control of and if you're just learning, it's hard. It's hard. So if you're just starting out, you can also buy some used or reconditioned ones from reputable places. Don't go just to anybody, because you are dealing with electronics, sensitive electronics. You want to make sure that everything is in good working order. DJI. DJI. Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna push that question just a little bit further.
Sure.
So if I have $600-700,
Mm-hmm.
can I get into
Mm-hmm.
something?
That one that let's see, how do I get back to the very beginning? Going too fast. The little one that I have, what I would suggest if you want to start, here. This one right here is called the Spark. It's from DJI, and that is $350. Already comes with the prop. Everything's on it. You can be flying with that in an hour.
And that comes with the camera?
That comes with a camera. Yeah, you can do stills and video on that flight, on that aircraft.
What's the quality of the camera?
Actually, it's not bad. It's I couldn't tell you right now off the top of my head the megapixels or anything. I want to say it starts at like 10 or 12 or something like that. I mean, they're decent images. They're really decent, and they're so easy to carry. I mean, you can fit it in your carry-on.
What do you find it with your business? What is your biggest challenge? Is it keeping up with the technology, going bigger, or do you have another challenge?
My biggest challenge is getting to all my sites within one day when the light is still there, because I have clients who have me going out to several different sites, and by the time I get out, set up, do all the connecting, do my flight, tear it all down, put it back up, drive over to the next site, take it out, set it all up, do my flight, tear it down. You know, I can do I did about 7 sites, I think, on one day, and that's really all in. So, and then of course editing the photos afterwards and delivering quickly. So, technology is always going to be evolving, just like in cameras. You don't want to go out and every year you're going to buy a new camera. You're going to buy stuff that's going to last a decent amount, so that there's a significant difference on your equipment the next time you make an investment. The other thing about this particular unit up here, this camera, or this drone, this one, have a fixed camera. The camera that comes with it is the one that you get. This drone here has 3 different interchangeable cameras that I can buy. I currently only have one for the type of work that I do, but it also has a camera that does infrared and thermal imaging. So if I get a client who needs, these ones are used often in first responder, safety, fires, that kind of thing, and they would have a thermal camera on it at that point looking for people in a scenario. But I don't have those needs for that at this time. If a client asks me for that and is willing to pay decent for the job, I will go get that camera. Any other questions? Well, you're easy. Have fun. It's a great thing. It's very addictive, as you can see. It's a gateway drug. Sorry.
Thank you, Linda. I Linda had asked me to bring, we carry with us a little card when we're out and about shooting, just because inevitably when we're out shooting with the drone, there's people who want to ask questions and want to know more, and it's very hard to have your focus on a drone that's flying through the air 500, 600 feet away and talk to somebody at the same time. So we have a little card that we give to people if they're curious, and I brought that with me, so there's some on the back table. If you're at all curious, it has some of the rules and just some general information about drones.
It's a great card.
We have the Mavic, the gray one up here next to the yellow. And that was going to be the next thing that I mentioned, is that I have it with me. I'm going to go back and open up the case if you want to take a look at it and hold it and see. We got that particular drone because we kayak a lot and we shoot when we kayak, and we really wanted to do drone stuff from boats. And that drone really works well from the boats. We can launch and land on water, and it works really well. 2 questions, what do we do?
How much was that one?
How much was it? I think when we bought it, the Mavic, we got the package deal with all the extra batteries and stuff like that. I want to say it was about $1,000 to $1,200. It might be a little bit lower now, but they've come up with a next version of the Mavic now that has, I think it has one has a Hassie camera lens in it, and then the other one allows you to zoom. So there is a new version. We haven't bought it. We haven't gotten enough clients to pay for us having the new one.
That comes back to that question about technology and keeping up with it. You know, you make an investment of $1,000 for your drone, and then 2 weeks later they come out with the next greatest thing. So, you know, you're always going to be behind on the new technology that's being brought out. So learn, enjoy, and don't have buyer's remorse. Just enjoy what you've got and go out, and you still can get it. You know, it's just like we say, it's not the camera, it's the photographer.
Yeah, so you can see that the Mavic took a good enough photo to reproduce on the cover of the magazine. I've done posters with it, and they do okay. 20 by 30 prints with it. Seems to do okay. So it does pretty well. There was another question. Yeah.
How do you deal with difficult people?
How do you deal with difficult people?
I see the YouTube videos where they're like really confrontational, where you're out where you should be and you're supposed to be where you can't be, and you get difficult.
Yes. I will tell you that I'm a huge, huge proponent of being certified and knowing the rules. And I think that the drone pilots that are out there that get a drone and want to fly it the same day and don't bother to learn anything about where they need to be are doing the whole industry a huge disservice. And my hope is the FAA can crack down on that more, because the more people do stupid stuff, the more people are going to get pissed off. And it happens all the time. I tend to be I err on the side of really humble when people get really cranky about the drone, and I prefer to educate, which is why another reason why I carry those information cards with me. I would prefer to show them what I'm doing and why I'm doing it and how I'm doing it and how I'm safe, rather than to fly off the handle and say, well, you can't tell me what to do because the FAA says I can be here, which is what in the back of my mind I'm thinking is, you know, can't tell me what to do. And we also we bought off of Amazon these really bright yellow certified FAA pilot vests. Please do not disturb, because it's just too hard when they come and ask questions. And usually when I get that situation, I'll just ask the person if they can just wait until I can bring the drone back, then I can show them. And I often will even hand the controller over to the person and say, here, if you want to just see what it does. Because I think a lot of people are just afraid that you really don't have control over that drone. You know, they've played with the $50 toys that you buy from Walmart, and you let go of the controls on that, and any kind of wind, which Nevada, we never have any wind, and it's gone. You know,
and that is absolutely, that's what I was talking about, that the $50 ones are really hard to control. They're so much harder to learn on than something like those.
I didn't mean to hijack her presentation. I just had a couple little things.
I think it's great. It's great because you're a flyer as well. So in this also, you'll notice I'm not wearing my safety vest here. That's because I was flying on a Sunday at this job site, and there was nobody on site with me, so there weren't going to be any trucks that were going to run over me. But normally I have my safety vest on as well.
And that's another good thing to mention, is that they often suggest that you have a visual observer with you. and that's somebody that's just not flying, not having anything to do with what you're doing. They're watching out for you to make sure you don't step in a hole or step in front of a car or back into a waterfall or, you know, I mean, I've done all of them, you know what I mean? And you're up there looking at the sky because you are supposed to keep eye contact with your drone at all times. So you're looking up there and you're walking down here and it doesn't always go so well. So, and also to have somebody else who can look for that drone as well. And also look for if there's any aircraft in the area, anything like that, so.
We have helicopters that fly around here quite often, and there's actually one of my job sites where it is a actual, they have like flight paths in the air as well. So there's a flight path for a helicopter right over, well, adjacent to one of my job sites. So I have to be real careful and always be mindful that there could be a helicopter that's flying. Now, I'm over here and they're over here, but in flight terms, that's still pretty darn close. So we want to make sure that if I hear a helicopter or somebody that's with me sees it, it's like, okay, I'm coming down. They have the right of way. I have to come down. So that's, you know, that's easy to keep track on. But also, you also always need to keep visual line of sight. So if your drone goes behind something or beyond where you can see, that's where you also need to have a visual observer there who's in touch with you so that they can say, oh yes, it's doing what it's supposed to be doing.
And your depth perception gets really screwed up with drones. Once you get it about 40, 50 feet away from you, you can't tell whether you're in front of or behind or next to or whatever. So it's just good to have another person helping too.
And practice. And practice. Oh, and the other thing is you are not allowed to fly at night without an FAA waiver. Now it's called a daylight waiver so that you can fly at night. But you have, that one you have to actually apply to the FAA. They take about anywhere from 30 days to 90 to approve that nighttime waiver. You also have to have special training for that because your depth of perception really goes off the deep end for night flying. So that's something else. We need lights for your drone at that point, and they have to be visible for 3 statute miles so that other aircraft can see you in the air. So again, there's a whole bunch of different regulations for night flying. However, those ones that I showed you at dusk, I'm allowed to fly 30 minutes before before sunrise from civil twilight, and 30 minutes after sundown to civil twilight, right? Yeah. So that's where I get away with this dusk shots.
And waivers are an exercise in frustration at times because I did a presentation on drones at the Rural Roundup last year, and I wanted to shoot out at the airport. They have an old B-12 bomber hangar out there at Tonopah. It's just beautiful. And I wanted to fly the drone around there, so I jumped through all the hoops. I got hold of the FAA, I got hold of, I think it's Clark County, Nye County, I can't remember which one it is, but I got hold of them, I got their thing in writing, they sent me all the paperwork, it was wonderful. I had a like 3-hour window for that one day that I was allowed to fly that drone. Well, I didn't know that I had to have DJI unlock the drone, because it locks when it gets near an airport when you're not allowed to fly, so I couldn't even get it off the ground. Well, I did contact DJI, but not in time for them to actually unlock it for me because they're in China. So I had faxed over the paperwork to them that said that I was allowed to fly there. So I got everything to them and I got there and I was ready to go, but the time that we were shooting, China wasn't open yet. And so they approved it about 30 minutes after I was unable to fly anymore. So it's, you know, and with Nevada wind, you know, it's a crapshoot, really. You can plan for one day and do everything right, and then guess what? It's too windy. So
that would be why I invested in the 6-prop zone drone, because that one is rated up to 25 miles an hour in wind. The other one, the DJI Phantom 4 Pro, which is the white one there, 14 or 15 miles an hour is stretching it. Even at 10, you can see it struggling. So being a commercial pilot and being on job sites, I need to have more versatility when the wind comes up. So that's why I made the jump to the more expensive one.
So we're at the point now where we're about 10 minutes from the next presenter. So
we're done.
Yeah, so unless there are any other burning questions or just grab us or whatever, I'm going to go open the box for the Mavic, so if you want to come check it out or anything.